Professor Pete here. We're in animation class, and in this video we are going to look at some of the 12 principles of animation. If you recall, there's Frank Thomas and Ollie Johnston with the principles of animation after working with Disney. So here's Squash and Stretch. Something jumps, stretches, when it comes back, it compresses. It makes it appealing. The other one is follow through and overlap. It's the idea of something moving forward and the appendages coming after and shooting forward. Another good example is whiplash, when you're standing next to a friend and she or he has long hair, and when they turn their head, sometimes that hair splashes you in the face. Same thing. So let's look at how we can do follow through and overlap in an arm swing. The arm swing is pretty straightforward, so let's look at how it's done. So I'm going to look at my upper arm here, since it is an appendage, and I can show you, how a lot of the energy comes from the root. Let's look at another video. Sometimes the best animation references is through sports. So here is Tiger Woods' arm swing as he hits the ball with the club. Notice what is the first thing that moves as he's moving his body forward, right? It's going to be his hips. His hips, then his legs, and then finally you start to see his shoulders, elbows, wrists, and then the club itself. So that is what we want to see with overlapping action. We want to make sure that we have something that starts from the core, ends up somewhere else. It makes for, again, much more interesting animation. And so let's look at this example of an arm swing in a walk cycle. Now the shoulder is what's driving the elbow, and then finally what's driving the wrist. So that's how we should animate it. So if we are going from pose to pose, I'm just going to right click here and create a classic tween. I'm going to, well, maybe we'll put these in here just in case, F5. We are going to do an arm swing, and that's going to happen every 6 frames. So I'm going to hit F6 here, and from here I will rotate the upper arm so it moves forward. The lower arm, again, just to illustrate this, will also rotate a little bit forward, and then the hand will also move a little forward. So I'm exaggerating a little bit. So we get this kind of movement here. As the arm goes back, we'll go to frame 12, and we'll bring the arm down. Hit F6 on all of these. So again, the arm pretty straight. And then if we want frame 18, hit F6 here too. And just to illustrate it, as the arm will go back, and just to exaggerate it, I'll also just knock out the elbow bit and then the wrist. So this is what we have. Goes forward, goes back. Again, now everything is moving at the same time, okay? So it's going like up here, it locks in, it's very predictable, not very interesting. So what we should do with follow through and overlap is we should have the elbow be just a frame behind, and exaggerate this, we'll have the wrist even 1 frame after that. So what will happen is something like this. And so the same could then be done with the second keyframe. So as you can see here, there's a slight delay in the arm. You can see that the hand too pops out of the wrist a little bit there. And then we get to the back. Again, it's to exaggerate it. And we can move it back 1 frame here too. So when it's all said and done, it looks like this. So you can see that the wrist pops a little bit. But as you can also see, it follow throughs a few frames and makes it very interesting. And so that's how it's done in terms of the keyframe. You want to make sure that there is a delay by just 1 or 2 frames. And as you can see here, I ended up just keeping it together because the wrist did pop out of the arm a bit. So that was interesting since it's already rigged. The other thing I want to show you is squash and stretch. So in this character, you'll see that he squashes and then stretches when he gets the outcome. And you can see too that there's a little follow through with the head and the body. There's a slight delay. It makes it very smooth. But notice how he just pops up in that shot. Here's another example, okay, where there's that squash and stretch. His body goes down and goes back up. Notice too his head is a little bit disconnected from his body, and it makes it for an interesting shot. I'll go ahead and show you the next demonstration. So I'm going to create a classic tween on these two, so that way I can create symbols for them. And I'm going to also, as you can see here how everything's rigged, the head is rigged to the body, show you how you can create the same effect with squash and stretch. So the character will sit here, squash, stretch, and then come back down. So he'll sit here for a bit, hit F5 there, hit F6 there, and then usually the animation happens in 5 frames. So frame 8, we'll go to frame 13. He will do a slight drop. So I'm going to hit F6 on both of these keyframes. So the character drops. I'm also going to drop the head a bit too, just to exaggerate. So create something like that. And then that's on frame 13. So frame 18, we'll have another keyframe, hit F6, and pop the character up like that. Frame 23, we'll go back to our standard position. So as you can see here, okay, the body pops, and again, it's exaggerating it. So we want to make sure the head is not entirely attached to the body, because then it just looks a little boring. And the other thing too to note too, I could add some more squash to this. So the head, I could hit Q on it and just drop it. Just to exaggerate further. Literally have the head squash get bigger here. It makes it much more appealing. And then finally, as we looked at the demonstration earlier, we can have a 1 frame delay. So I'm going to just select all this and just drag it 1 frame. And now, when we watch it, and then the body moves first, and then the head. So to test it out, that's what it looks like. It creates a much more fluid animation and much more appealing for the audience to watch. It doesn't take much work, but as you can see, squash and stretch, follow through and overlap, all these principles can be used, whether a character turns their head, whether they are looking down, looking up, all these different things. And it's very quick to do, and it looks great. So see how you can exaggerate by using squash and stretch, and also by adding overlap in your movement for your characters. That's all I got. Professor Pete, I'm out. Keep learning.